Hello, welcome to this video recap of the last day of the FIDE World Rapid Chess Championship, which took place in Poland today and the previous 2 days. Well, yesterday we left Magnus Carlsen on the top with 7.5 out of 9. He was leading the tournament and he was not playing especially well. In fact, he admitted that his level was far from his best, but still he was grabbing his chances and everything was well ready for him to keep his crown of Rapid World Champion. But fate put some dangerous opponent in the middle, named Tiebreak Abdusattorov. And let's have a look at the game which took place on round 10 when Magnus had to face this very strong young player from Uzbekistan. In this game, Magnus was playing with the black pieces, and we are going to have a look at the whole game because I believe it's pretty interesting. This young guy is a specialist in this tricky line with e4. This line of the English opening looks pretty bad because white is leaving weak the square d4, and I always thought that this cannot be good, but the truth is that it's not so easy to play with black, because if we do the natural development move bishop c5, then white can take on e5, and this is a well-known trick in some other lines, and here it is working well. I mean, after knight takes e5, d4, and white regains the pawn, and the play becomes very sharp, and usually it considers to be dangerous for black. Of course, it is even worse to take on f2, because after king takes f2, knight e5, d4, we have a check, but the king goes to g1, and later after h3 or e5, black is going to get a miserable position. So it's a very tricky line, and current theory considers that the best way to play is bishop b4, and after d3, d6, and the bishop comes back to c5. And now there are no tricks with knight e5, but of course white has a pleasant idea here, a choice to grab this bishop. This is what Tiebreak played, and both, of course, they were very ready, very well prepared in this line. Magnus went bishop g4, and here we are going to have a very interesting battle, because we will see Magnus was left with 2 knights versus 2 bishops, but the center is closed at the moment, and Magnus is he will try to make this a bad bishop, and if he could get his knight to e6, let's say some maneuver like knight d7, f8, e6, and then jump into d4, and he could be clear better against this bishop on f1. But it's clear that people who plays this with white, they know the main ideas, and of course Abdusattorov, he was well aware of this, and he plays g3. The idea is that the bishop will become active soon through h3. Black played queen f6, trying to go for an endgame, and white went queen d1. Well, black continued with his idea to bring the knight to e6, and I was a bit surprised to see that the boy, he didn't care really. I mean, he went bishop g2 and castle, very quiet, and the point is that if black jumps, then white is ready to play f4, and the position becomes sharp. I don't know, analyzing with a computer, maybe we can find out that pawn takes, knight f3 check can be like a good idea just to take on b2. But who knows? I mean, maybe white is fine here. I don't know. It can be very tricky. The truth is that Magnus went for a very committal move, but very interesting one, g5. He's trying to prevent f4. And in fact, I mean, he's trying just to win the game with knight d4, h5, h4. White needs to do something very, very fast. And then he played bishop h3. h5, and he took. This looks like, well, I mean, some kind of achievement for black, because now white is left without a pair of bishops, and black here has a pleasant choice to take with the pawn or with the queen. In the game, Magnus went queen e6, he's training h4, white has to be very careful, but he's just in time to play b5, driving the knight away. He pretends to come back to the game through d7, c5, and f4. This was white's idea, makes sense. He's trying to be faster than black on the king side, and using the fact that there is some pressure on the long diagonal. After take, knight d7, I have to say that the position is more or less equal. Both sides have trumps, but maybe I would rather play with black here. I would, if I would have to choose, I would probably play with black. In the game after king h1, Magnus decided to go for the endgame with queen g4, and it was a bit surprising that after queen f3 he didn't trade queens. I think this was maybe some slight mistake, in my opinion. Maybe he thought his queen is very strong here, and he decided to keep it. But the truth is that after take, finally the knight can be good in these endgames. Probably it's a draw, but in general black is fine. But he went f6 here, and then white used the opportunity to drive the queen to avoid the exchange of queens, and played queen e3. The game becomes again very sharp. Black is playing for the attack, and white can also have some attacking ideas. Opposite castle, and the game becomes pretty interesting. At one point, black queen was in some danger, so Magnus played h4 and queen h5. And suddenly, things are not so easy on the king side, because white gets a stronghold on g6, and still probably black is fine. I mean, he took here. It was a very committal decision now from white to take with the pawn. He can lose this pawn. In fact, he went rook g8, and now it's going to be difficult to keep the pawn here. Of course, if rook g6, probably he didn't like that there are some enters here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe knight c5, and then some queen d1, and this can be really dangerous for white. That's why he took with the pawn, rook g8, g7, and the queen h7. Probably Magnus was quite happy here. He's taking this pawn, but black, I mean white, also takes on h4, and now he gets a dangerous pawn, which in fact was, in the end, it was a decisive factor. The position was difficult. I mean, black is, we will see very soon that black got a better king and a better knight. The knight is stronger than the bishop here. The position is pretty blockaded, but after bishop c1, black of course cannot take, because check and take the knight. Magnus played c6. This is very natural, trying to improve the position of his king. And now he found an interesting idea to go to the queen side with the king. The game still probably around equal. Black can be happy with his knight, with his king, and good pawn structure, but white can also have some hopes with this pawn. And this was in the next few moves, Magnus was trying to control this little pawn. Queen h7 just to avoid h4, and king a6 trying to improve the position of the king. It was very interesting. Now white played this idea. He wanted just to go to the queen side and then be able to have a protected king and then to push the pawn. And Magnus then reacted in a very aggressive way with this break move d5. At this point, it's interesting that Abdusattorov didn't want to repeat moves with king g2. I don't know if he was playing for a win, but the truth is that he was playing very ambitious. He went h3. He had now 2 minutes, and Magnus Carlsen only half minute. So this was a very tension moment for Magnus. The Norwegian went d5. We will see. The idea is that d3 is hanging here. If white decides to take, then finally d3 may fall. But Nodirbek found a very good move, queen f5. So black cannot change queens because the h-pawn would become too dangerous in this line. Take, 93, then h4, or maybe cd5 first and h4. And this is very scary for black. I mean, I don't think the knight can really control this pawn. And then, okay, Magnus went queen g8, take, and take. And, well, according to my knowledge, black should be all right. I mean, his king is better protected, the queen is very powerful, the knight is also doing a great job, but still, we always have the same problem. The pawn can be very strong, and in fact, this is what happened in the next few moves. White was trying to get some shield for his king, black was making some progress also on the queen side with his own king. And at this point, after h4, Magnus, he was playing for a win, in my opinion, and went e4. This is probably a bit dubious because now, suddenly, there are a lot of tricks. I mean, the knight becomes very dangerous. White has to be very careful. He has 1 minute, Magnus half minute, and after queen f3, queen g6, h5, the pawn is going to promote. I mean, he's pushing the pawn, and we don't see really what black is getting in exchange. Of course, this pawn is not so important at this moment. And here he had a very good opportunity to play queen h5. I don't know if he missed this move or if he was simply trying to play for a win. Nobody knows, but this was a big mistake not to play queen h5. After queen h5, take check. Okay, this is going to be, of course, a draw. I mean, it's a dead draw. But Magnus played f5, and suddenly the pawn is still alive, h6, and black is in danger, mainly because this guy is just 2 steps to promotion. We can see the game from here. It becomes very strange, very difficult to analyze. They were both in big time trouble, only half minute each, but finally they go for some queen endgame where only white can be better because this check. This is a very important move. If not this check, then okay, black would be all right. But this check is very important because now suddenly white has, of course, perpetual if he wants. But it's interesting that he decided to play for a win with queen g7, which, of course, it's very natural. He's just 2 moves for promotion. Now it is black who has to be very careful. His pawns are worth nothing. And he needs to do a lot of checks. And the problem is that it was not so easy because the king may hide behind black pawns and it can be easily lost. At this point, Magnus played f4, some check, h7. Still here, computer says that black could probably hold here with some precise play, queen f1 check. But from my experience, queen endgames are very difficult to defend. I mean, if you have a advanced pawn, your chances to win are very high because mistakes are very often very easy to commit for the defensive side. And this is what happened in this game. Magnus played queen e5, and probably this is, according to the computer, this is already lost. But I'm not going to criticize the moves because at some point it is maybe draw. We jump from winning to draw. But Nodirbek was clever, bringing his king to the queen side, trying to hide from the checks behind the enemy pieces. And at one point the checks were over. We will see soon. After queen c6, check, queen c7, this was clever. And Magnus finally ran out of checks here. And he had to play the only move not to lose immediately, queen h8. But now his position becomes passive, and white is using the opportunity to do some checks, and at one point Magnus is going to collapse after b4. b4 is probably a losing move. It was necessary to do some checks here or here, but after b4 black is lost because after queen d2 check, now he's going to take with check. The only square not to lose this pawn with check is a1, but then queen d4 check was the end of this dramatic game. It was the first defeat of Magnus in the event, and well, I mean, his first defeat, in fact, in a long time. I mean, in this kind of tournaments. So this left the field with Abdusattorov on the top, now leading the tournament. There was another important game here, Firouzja Nakamura. Let's go to move 32. We cannot, of course, check all games, but at this point, Firouzja was, in my opinion, completely winning. He has two bishops versus bishop and knight, and the most important thing is this pawn is incredibly dangerous. And the simplest way to play, and I'm very surprised that Firouzja didn't do it, but I have the feeling that he can still improve a lot in endgames, but it's a very natural move, rook d8. I mean, you trade rooks, and then your pawn is incredibly strong. According to the computer, this should be an easy win for white, and I have to agree. I mean, it's a simple plan. We trade rooks, and we push the pawn. And, well, I mean, I don't see any defense for black. Instead, he played bishop b6, and then black went bishop d4, and things are much more difficult. Now the bishop is active, and after bishop d5, knight d7, the knight starts to play. White has to lose some coordination here, and finally the game was a draw. Still, there were some mistakes. Both players were very short on time. Firouzja went bishop c7, and Nakamura made a new mistake with bishop e5, which white could play bishop c4 here and attacking the knight. Black would be forced to lose tempo with bishop d4 and then a5, and this looks again very, very good for white, probably winning. But okay, Firouzja took on e5, and finally Naka saved the game with a draw. So Alireza lost a bit the trail of the leaders. Let's have a look at the standings after this very interesting round 10. Let me show you. These are the standings after round 10. We have two players, Abdusattorov and Nepomniachtchi, who won his game, by the way, against Grishuk. And they were leading, but they have already played. So for round 11, they were going to pick some other opponents. Let's have a look at round 11. And here it was not easy to choose games because many were very interesting. This is a game of Magnus, and I wanted to go to move 15. In this very important game, Carlsen Nepomniachtchi, a lot of people was of course expecting this game. Nepo played probably a dubious move in this moment. This was the only moment where white could get something, Magnus. And here Magnus played a very natural knight d4, almost without thinking, automatically. And then black went knight c5, and the game was more or less equal. A computer is showing a very interesting idea here to get an advantage for white with knight a4. It's a difficult move. We attack the rook, and there are not so many squares. If you see, everything is covered, and we need to find only just two squares, b8 or b7. b7 looks really dangerous, so we go rook b8, and then after knight d4, white is better with this threat, and this could probably bring maybe Magnus important victory in this game against Nepo, but it didn't happen. Magnus played knight d4, and the game was a draw. Another interesting game is Fedoseev Abdusattorov. We go to move 39, and here we will see that champions, they need some luck. This position was better for white. The Russian player Vladimir Fedoseev had a strong knight. c4 was hanging. g5 was also sometimes possible, and a5 was maybe weak sometimes as well. So Abdusattorov was having a difficult time in this game, and he made a blunder with rook knight e7. It was necessary to play active with rook e2. He played knight e7, and he missed probably this very strong move, rook e5. And suddenly he's in big trouble. He has to take, and now f6 is gonna fall. The bishop will come to d4. The knight will take on c4, and few moves later, we will go fast. Few moves later, I would say that the position was completely winning. I mean, here white is simply 2 pawns up, And this could be an important defeat, I mean an important game for the fate of the tournament. Abdusattorov could lose this game, but amazing, he saved this position with some very skillful defense. And of course white helped a little bit, but in general we have to give some credit to this young player fighting. Okay, I will show you, I will not comment too much, just to see that black got very active, and finally white was unable to, the rook got trapped here, and well, I mean, finally black was able to save the game, you know, and draw. And a very important game for Nodirbek. There was another important game here. Well, Nakamura won, Caruana made a draw with Duda, very tough matches on the top, of course. And Grishuk Alexeyenko, this was a game which I want to show you just what happened on, I'm sorry, it was not this game. Maybe Nakamura was what I wanted to show you. Move 58. Yes, Nakamura. This was the game which I wanted to show you. Nakamura Hovhannisyan. And well, this position was in this game. Black could simply take on g3, and after check, king f8, take, maybe take on h4. And okay, white cannot take on b2 because check. And it's true that he's got 2 pawns and some hopes to win the game, but in general black should hold. I mean, I have the feeling that this should be a draw. But in the game it was played a very bad move, bishop h4, and now it's your move, white, to play and win. Can you find the winning move, which Nakamura, of course, he found? Yeah, bishop h7 check. And thank you so much for a full piece, and Naka won the game. Okay, what were the standings after round 11? Because only two more rounds to play, and we got on the top 2 players only after round 11. Abdusattorov with 8.5 and Nepo with 8.5. Yes, this was the standings. And before, I think maybe, yes, they kept, the leaders kept from round 10 to round 11. There were many draws on the top, so the standings were more or less the same. And we go directly to round 12. Let's go back to the games. It has been an amazing tournament, full of emotions, a lot of blunders. I think players are maybe playing too much on the internet with this pre-move, and they forgot how to play over the board. I'm joking, of course. The quality was high, but still many blunders in this tournament. Okay, from round 12, I was checking some games. Of course, Carlsen Aronian was a very important game for the world champion. He managed to win. Let's go to the critical moment, in my opinion, move 36. They were playing this endgame. Magnus was, of course, pressing with exchange up, and this should be holdable, in my opinion, because h-pawn is not the best pawn to try to win this kind of endgames. But black played a very bad mistake, rook g4 check. I don't know what Aronian was thinking, but this is allowing white to trade pieces, and this is very much in white's favor. I'm not sure if this is already winning. I didn't have time to check it with the Lomonosov table basis, but let me just show you. I would put some classical music to let you enjoy the way Magnus plays these positions. I mean, I don't know if it's a draw, but if you play with Magnus, better don't get this kind of positions, because he's going now, look, his king could not cross, he's going from behind, and now he will come back. Now the pawn is on, it's amazing, no? The pawn is on g4, now he will try to get square g3 for his king, and if he gets to g3, then it's going to be an easy win, because when white goes king g3, he will play h3 and the bishop is hanging. So that's why Aronian is forced to try another setup with the bishop on e6, but then slowly the white king is going to dominate, and finally white takes the pawn. Oh, okay, it's just the Magnus technique. It's well known, and it helped him to win this game, a very important game before the last round. A lot of draws on the top, but I wanted to show you a critical moment. Well, I mean, this game was very important. Gukesh, Abdusattorov. These two very talented young players fighting for the glory. And Gukesh, if he would win, he could enter, tie for the first place. And he was very close in this game. This young Indian player, I'm not going to comment on the opening. Okay, it's a well-known line of the Queen's Gambit. And I wanted to go to some critical moments a bit later, because I think Gukesh played very well. He, in my opinion, he outplayed his opponent. And he was getting a very interesting attack on the queen side against this strange long castle, quite weak on the A file. And okay, there were some blunders, some mistakes maybe, but at one point it's clear that white is better. I mean, white is better, clearly better. He's going to take on f4, that's why black goes knight d3 and knight d5. But white is taking, and after check nothing happens. And black is left piece down and in a completely losing position. Computer is giving already +7 for white. White is having a killing attack. He's a piece up. f4 is falling. I mean, it's incredible that Gukesh could not win this position. He didn't find the right moves. And finally, Abdusattorov managed to survive. Don't ask me how. With a piece down, there were some mistakes, and here he made a decisive blunder. Still, he was probably winning here. He had to be careful, maybe play bishop e2, giving some room for his king to escape. But he played c takes b7 with still 5 minutes on his clock. So a serious blunder, because it came rook e5 check, and now suddenly we cannot take because queen d2 is mate. He's lucky to have bishop e2, but then rook takes e2 check, and he cannot take because queen c1 is going to be checkmate. So after this terrible tactical mistake, rook e5 check, bishop e2, he's lucky that going to the king side, it's only a draw. I mean, he could lose this game. It's amazing, by the way. I mean, it's very interesting that he can make a draw at this position with queen g7. It's a very nice move. After king f2, check, 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 and it's a perpetual. It's a very interesting game, these two young talented players. And of course, Abdusattorov was lucky, again, to save a very difficult position in this round 12. Still, another very good game here. Fabiano Caruana, he beat with the black pieces Alexander Grishuk, and it was a very original. I have to show it because it was a strange opening. Both very creative, playing very, very aggressive. They knew that if they want to win the championship, they need to win this game, and they were both very brave. And the game was really amazing because at one point black made a fantastic sacrifice. You will see very soon. White is attacking, black is also going to attack. These are very exciting games. White prevents the rook from coming to g6. Bishop h4 came here, rook h3, and g5. It was all or nothing for both players, and it's a crazy game. And at this point, look at this moment. Grishuk went knight f5. Of course, I mean, what to do? I mean, he cannot move the rook because he's going to be checkmated. So he went knight f5, and black decided to sack the queen. gf3, a very good sacrifice from Fabiano Caruana with this check. The position is pretty unclear. I'm not sure. Now Grishuk found a very good maneuver, putting this bishop here just to protect completely his king. Black has rook, bishop, and pawn for the queen. It's completely crazy position, but in a few moves, I mean, white made this mistake. I think this was very important to keep this bishop here. And now black will start to attack like hell with this bishop and these two rooks, and the poor white king will find no relief. I mean, look at this fantastic, very energetic play by Fabiano Caruana, who was attacking here and winning very fast this game. The rook didn't have the chance to play, and white resigned in this position. So it was excellent, and after round 12, what was the situation? Let's have a look. We've got 4 players tying for the first place with Fabiano, Carlsen, Nepo, and Abdusattorov. This young player, number 59 on the ranking, but playing a fantastic chess, fighting with all the very best. Well, before the last round, let me tell you something, because it was a bit surprising what happened in the last round, and I believe that Caruana was not aware about the tiebreak system, because the rules said that in case of a tie for the first place, only the top 2 players, according to the Buchholz, the tiebreak Buchholz -1, only these 2 would go for the tiebreak. Look, his Buchholz was very bad. It was clearly the worst of all the 4 players, and that's why it's so difficult to explain what Fabiano did on the last round, making a very short draw with Nepomniachtchi, who was probably very happy because his Buchholz was very good, and with 9.5 he was well, he had very, very good chances to get a spot into this top 2, the final. So let's have a look what happened in this last round, and decisive, of course. I was picking just 2 fragments, 2 games. There were many draws in this last round. People, they wanted, look, all the top players, they were also trying to secure a good price. The prices were extremely good at the top. And I was picking a game, okay, Nakamura Carlsen was a very tough game. Carlsen was trying to play for a win, but Naka defended well in a rook endgame. Finally, it was a draw in 66 moves. For Magnus, if he would win, of course, he would be champion, and he was really close, but Naka defended well. Caruana Nepo was strange. Look at this. This was the position, draw. I mean, the game lasted just 5 moves. This was the game. And I don't know why Caruana played the draw with white. If he knew that he was immediately out of the tiebreak. Very strange decision, and probably he will explain in a press conference later. Another important game, of course, and I want to show you a critical moment of this game of move 36. We will not go too deep because this is technical, very difficult, but look how difficult the rook games. It happened very funny things in this round. I picked the same idea in 2 games and very decisive. Abdusattorov Duda. At this point, the young player from Uzbekistan, he made a mistake playing this check. He had to take on g7 first, and only after rook h4 then check. Now the king has to go away, and white goes to grab this pawn, and he's training king e3. And if black is not in time to, okay, if he defends, then king e3 is a draw, and any other move we take, and it's only 1 pawn down, and probably this is going to be drawish. I mean, we come with the king to e3, and it's very likely that white can save this game. Instead, he went not very precise move, rook f7 check, king e5 take, and now, of course, black had only half minute. We cannot criticize him for taking on h4. Looks very natural, but if he would be a bit more patient, he would play king d4. It's a very important move. We want to take this guy and get 2 past connected pawns. White is forced to check, and then we go king d3, and now the idea is rook d6, rook d4, and take this pawn. And analysis show that life can be pretty difficult for white. I mean, I was checking a little bit some moves here. Black plays h5, for example. I made some little analysis here, and it's difficult to defend. I mean, we can end in some endgame like this, and well, I mean, even this is let me show you, it's quite funny. Of course, this you may say, okay, this would never happen. Well, I mean, I'm playing the most logical moves. And then, okay, we reach this endgame. And do you remember what I said about queen endgames with a pawn up? They are very difficult to defend. I don't know if this is losing, but in practical play, and especially in Blitz, it's impossible to defend well here. Black would win for sure. So Duda had his opportunity here. It was, of course, very delicate not to take on h4, just to play king d4 in this very difficult rook endgame. But it's quite funny because Gukesh in game 4, I mean versus Grishuk, Gukesh had the same opportunity after move 30. Look, this is the position. They were playing some rook endgame. And now, well, I mean, it's black 5 pawns, white 4, but, well, white took here. And after this very important check, if the king attacks the rook, then black can simply go to the 7th rank. And black is, of course, very good here. But after check, okay, white played king d3, g5, and this was a draw. But it's quite funny that, like in the previous game, white could delay a bit this taking and play first b4. And this move prevents the rook to come to c5. In fact, black has no good moves with his rook. And white is going to take on a7, and black will be in trouble because white pawns are fast. And, well, maybe this is holdable, but again, this was a very good chance for Gukesh. If he would win this game, he would go to the very best, tie for the first place. This didn't happen. And as you already probably know, we got final standings with Abdusattorov on the top, 9.5, Nepo, Carlsen, and Caruana, 4 players, time for first. And then the rules, and I can even add the stupid rules, said that only the best 2 would play the tiebreak. Why not 4 and play semi-final and final? Nobody knows. I don't understand it. And Carlsen was complaining after the tournament that this was quite stupid rule, and probably he's right. Why to make only with 2 players? I mean, I don't really see it. We were playing 13 rapid games for more than 15 hours. Why to not to spend 20 more minutes just to have a fair champion? It would have been very interesting. The semi-final, Abdusattorov, Caruana, and Nepo Carlsen. But instead, we got a final, which was also pretty interesting, between Nepo playing this young talent, Abdusattorov. Let's go to see the games. This was a Blitz game, 3 minutes plus 2 seconds. This is the end of game 1. Of course, you cannot fight more. I mean, it was a long fight. I will go fast. I mean, this is Blitz. It was a Rui Lopez. And it's amazing, they were both playing very fast, a very theoretical line. They were both blitzing the games, annotators didn't have even time to see what's going on. And later I was checking, and it is a well-known line with a couple of games. After queen c2, white sacrifice a piece, but after rook d1, black is in trouble, the knight is hanging. So knight b4 was blitzed by Abdusattorov. Look, the times 3:21, 3 for white. Both players started with 3 minutes, so it's clear they were both very well prepared in this line. And all this was theory, amazing, no? Move 20, such complicated position, and all this has been played before. Still, Abdusattorov, look, 3:26, still Nepo 3 minutes. They both knew very well. And this is the idea. Finally, white gets a very slight advantage on an endgame in this position. Well, I don't know if we need to check the whole game because it's very long. At one point, black was in big trouble. I mean, at this point, white is better. He has the open line. d4 can be weak. These pawns can be quite strong. And the white pieces in general are better placed. It was a bit strange move, rook fe1, in my opinion. Rook fe1. I was expecting some king g3, something like that. But, well, the mysterious move, rook fe1, d4, h5. And rook c6 came here, which was probably not the best. White took, take, and now g5 was very strong, simply trying to push the pawn, and black was in real trouble here to stop it. But in the game it was e6, which is very natural. White was better, but it was holdable, and finally they reached this final position where white sacrificed his knight, and it was a draw. Okay, let's see the decisive game. Abdusattorov became world champion. Congratulations, he played an amazing tournament, beating all the top guns, and I mean, only with 17 years old. I mean, it's incredible. This was the decisive game. Abdusattorov, he was loyal to his staff, to his pet line, and he tried something different, like in the game with Magnus. He didn't like this bishop g4, so now he went h3, but then black also uses this time to get a safe haven for his bishop, and both sides can be reasonably happy with the development of the opening. Here we have to pay attention that white sometimes wants to break on d4, and that's why Nepo took on e3, he castled, and in general I like this position for white because we got the pawn went to the center, and we got a very important f line to make some pressure on the king side, and a very beautiful center. It's true that the bishop is not the best bishop we've seen in our life, but still it will be useful to protect the base of the chain, d3. So I have the feeling white is better. How much better I don't know, but definitely better. And for a while I think this was true. And here I was very much surprised to see king h2. I was expecting queen h2. I'm not saying that white is winning, but g3, h4, and okay, we are going to get some initiative on the king side, that's for sure. But white was very careful, playing king h2, and then okay, I think the game now becomes pretty equal, you know. Okay, so we have to move a bit faster. This idea, knight g5, I didn't quite understand it. I mean, I have the feeling the knight is not well on e6, because after knight e6, bishop g4, and there is the threat rook f7. And this was the beginning of trouble for Nepo, who was here thinking almost half minute, and this is a clear sign that he didn't like his position. The problem is that knight c5, d4, and if knight d3, rook d2, and the knight is in trouble. I mean, so he went knight c7, and now his knight is misplaced, and white is getting some initiative on the queen side. Knight a4, now controlling an important square on b6, and very soon d4 came. We cannot say that the game was perfect, but white was better. Nepo understood that things are getting very ugly with some ideas like this, and then he went b5 and took with the knight, which I don't really like it, because now this is weak. And at this point I thought bishop e6 was important move, just to have very strong bishop here, but he delayed this move, went knight c3, and then black went king f7. Well, probably there are some other better moves for both sides, but the most important part of the game came a bit later. This was a real drama. They were both playing very fast. Here, half minute for white, only 25 seconds for Nepo. And, well, I mean, here the bishop becomes very strong after the move e4. In fact, this is probably already, I don't know, maybe winning for white. After this bishop c4 check, probably it was a better idea to simply go away with the king and try to defend in a passive way. Of course, white is better here, but maybe not winning. But after d5, then white got this pawn up with e4, and he took bishop takes d5, and the position suddenly becomes very difficult for black. I mean, he's a pawn down, and also we will see soon that he has some weaknesses. I mean, here e5 is weak, and white got a very nice pawn up here. He went d6. He's trying to get another pawn. This is a very important weakness on black's camp. Nepo, he had to make a choice. He was trying to survive. Times were already very short. I mean, 16 seconds for white, 13 seconds for black. A lot of mistakes came now. We have to forgive the players because, of course, it's difficult. I was later listening some commentators on some channel criticizing so many blunders. Come on, I mean, you are playing for the World Championship. You have only 5 seconds, and you want me to play very precise, such a difficult position. I think we have to be a bit to understand that chess is very difficult. Well, I mean, when I saw this position, I thought, okay, this young guy, he's going to win. Because now it's very simple. I mean, black played rook d6. This was probably a bad move. He had to play rook b7 just to keep b2. Because after rook d6, then rook f7 is decisive. White is protecting his pawn and he's getting another pawn, so he will be 2 pawns up, and this is game over. So after a few moves, black played a definite mistake. King h5, he had to play king f6. White is winning, but after king h5, Nepo, you could see his face, 8 seconds, his opponent 16 seconds, and Nepo, he saw that he's getting mated. Can you find the mate in 2? Just mate in 2. And Abdusattorov, he was in big tension, and all his brain was thinking how I can promote this pawn. This was all his idea, and he didn't find the simple move rook e5 check and rook h4, rook g4 mate, because all his brain was focused how to promote this pawn. And then okay, he was thinking a lot. 7 seconds. Now he was left with only 9 seconds. He played king f5, and still the game is winning. But well, I mean, the game goes on. Rook takes b2, and this mate I saw, I think very few people saw it on live, but I saw it immediately because it happened in one of my games. I saw mate in 2 now with rook g5. This was a very beautiful mate. If pawn takes rook h7, it's checkmate. And if king h4, of course, I mean, if after rook g5, if king h4, then we have rook e4 mate. The same mate like before. But as I said, you cannot blame Abdusattorov. He wanted to promote the pawn. This was all his idea in this time travel. And then he went rook g8, trying to promote. And he's still better. But again, there was some fight with rook f2 check. But Nepo went rook d2. He was also, both players, they were just focusing on the pawn, and they were forgetting about the checkmate. Again, white had checkmate with rook g5, but he didn't find it. He went rook e1. Of course, he saw this mate, and this is very dangerous, but this is a big mistake, because now after rook d5 check, black can make a perpetual check. It was amazing. Black, Nepo with 7 seconds, Abdusattorov with 4 seconds. He was very close to lose on time several times. Check. Now he understood he cannot go further because he's going to lose the pawn with check. He comes back, more checks. He comes back, another check, and this was probably a decisive mistake. The only way to make the draw was to check with this rook, but this was incredibly difficult. I mean, what is the point? The point is that after king g3, we have this move, very important, rook g5 check, and in this way, after take, black has a miracle draw. He's going to take on d7, and if rook e7, he has the move king f6 and king g6, and this is a draw. So it's incredible. He, of course, could not calculate all these things. And then, okay, if king f3, then we simply go check, and if king f2, we go check, and if king g1, again, we have a miracle move, rook d1. And this is again a draw. But this was, of course, impossible to calculate with 4 seconds on the clock. So we got this very natural check, and then white is winning because his king is hiding on h2. And now after rook d5, the guy, he understood, okay, he said, okay, now this is my opportunity. I finally can promote the pawn, because after rook takes, he saw this idea, check. And now, to avoid checkmate, black has to take, sacrifice a rook. but instead Nepo decided to resign. It was a game with like flipping a coin. Both players very big time trouble, and finally the young player showed that he had good nerves and a very deserved first prize. I think we have a very worth world champion. Congratulations again. It was a wonderful tournament. I don't know who was the best. Magnus was far from his best. I liked very much Nepo. Nepo was doing very fine, playing very fast, very confident. But finally, I think Abdusattorov made the best tournament. He had a very strong opposition and he played very well. Let's finish this video recap with I'm going to let you know a bit more about this guy, Nodirbek Abdusattorov. Look at him. This is of course a very old picture. Number 132 in the world with a rating of 26-33. It's obvious that this is not his strength. He's much stronger. In fact, he just won 2 tournaments in Spain before this World Rapid Championship near Barcelona. 2 very strong open tournaments, and he has a bright future, and we hope to see him in the next 2 days playing this Blitz. I feel Magnus, he wants revenge, and we are going to win as a wonderful Blitz World Championship. You can join us on these recaps on ICC. Thank you so much for watching, and see you very soon on the Blitz recaps. Bye bye.